Today, I want to talk about a new training framework that I've recently been thinking about in my training, and I think it's going to help you take your training to the next level. And I'm referring to it as the hybrid fitness equation. And essentially, what this equation is it's three parts, and the end goal here is improved fitness. So, part number one, training stimulus. Part number two, resource requirements. Part number three, recovery requirements. So when you take the three of those, you add them together, the end result is improved fitness. So I'll do a really quick high level overview to start off of what each of these are, and then we'll go into a little bit of a deeper dive on how you can manipulate each part of this equation. So number one, the training stimulus. This is, the most obvious part, right? Um, Running, lifting, any kind of physical training, really. That's what we're looking at here. Number two, we have the resource requirements. So two main things in here. There's a lot more room for nuance, but the two main things, protein, total calories. Number three, final part of this side is recovery requirements. So a couple different things you can think about here. Sleep, pretty big one. Rest, relaxation, and total time recovering in between workouts. So with that out of the way, I do want to throw out a quick question here, and that is, can you see results just with the training part of the equation? The answer is yes, but the reality here is that it's going to be, severely limited results, and really it's only going to be a small fraction of what you're, fully capable of achieving in terms of improving your fitness. So in order to actually maximize your fitness and performance, you're going to want to optimize the full equation. So with that being said, let's take a bit of a dive into each of the three parts of the equation, and we'll see what some of the different things are that we can do to improve each part and get the end result of improved overall fitness and performance. So again, first category is training stimulus. We won't spend too much time on this because I've covered this quite a bit in the past, and you probably know this part very well already. So, depending on what, how you want the body to respond and adapt, there's lots of different ways and lots of different stimuluses that you can provide your body with. So, if you're looking for strength or hypertrophy, it'll be some kind of lifting weights. If it's, some kind of cardiovascular endurance, you're looking to build up your base or your top end cardio performance, your VO2 max sort of thing. There's different zone 2 sessions and quality cardio sessions, interval work, threshold runs, that kind of thing. And of course, you can, for the Hyrox specific athletes here, you can absolutely count, your circuit training here where you're working on multiple of these different attributes at the same time. You throw in muscular endurance. So this is the part we know the most about. And the main thing here is you want to be giving your body adequate stimulus to respond and adapt to. If you're not providing the stimulus, it doesn't really matter how much the other two parts, the resource and the recovery requirements of the equation are. If there's nothing to adapt to, no adaptation is going to happen, right? So with that out of the way, we'll move on to resource requirements. So again, just a reminder, this is protein and calories are sort of the two main things that we're looking at here. So on the protein side, we want to be looking at, are we getting enough protein to either rebuild our existing muscle or, depending on the phase we're in, potentially even building more muscle. And as a good baseline, I think for uh, people with this goal of maintaining or even building more muscle, you probably want to be going about 1 gram per pound uh, of 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight per day in your diet. Pretty good spot to be. Um, if you're seeing a lot of muscle breakdown, which can definitely be quite common with hybrid training, with the very very high volume, high activity levels. Um, you could be seeing a lot more muscle breakdown. At that point, it would be certainly worth experimenting going with a higher protein intake, just to help preserve muscle, or especially if you're trying to build more muscle. On the total calorie side, there's a couple things we want to be considering here. So first of all, are you getting enough calories to actually fuel your workouts and make sure that you're performing well in your workouts? If you're in a muscle building phase where you're trying to, slowly gain a little bit of weight, then you want to be considering if you're in a caloric surplus. Um, if you're not in a surplus, you're not going to be gaining weight, and you won't be seeing the results you want in terms of that goal. And finally, an extra detail here for specific really to hybrid and endurance athletes and workouts really is, are you getting enough carbs, and are those carbs adequately timed so that they are fueling your workouts, specifically with the longer cardio sessions. All right, let's move on to the recovery requirements here. So just to give you a really high level overview of what this bucket is, uh, what we want to be thinking about is, are you giving your body the opportunity to recover and adapt to the training stimulus that you're providing? So there's multiple different things that go into this. Number one is probably the most obvious, but it is, of course, sleep. So a couple questions you want to be asking yourself here. Are you getting enough sleep? Is your sleep consistent? And is it of high quality? And when I say consistent, that's, from night to night, both. Are you getting roughly the same amount of time? And is it happening at the same time of day? Ideally, you're going to bed and waking up around the same time each day. Next little bucket here within recovery is stress. So are you constantly feeling stressed out, or are you able to downrate and relax in between workouts? You do need to have that opportunity for your body to actually recover, repair, rebuild in between workouts. That is when the adaptation happens. It doesn't happen during the workouts, it happens after. And if you're always in a very strung out, high stress state in between workouts, it's going to be very hard for your body to actually adapt. And then finally, we want to be looking at the overall time to recover in between workouts. And this is something that can be particularly challenging as hybrid athletes, with potentially a very high training load. You want to make sure that you're not overtraining and starting to train a given muscle or training system before it's had the chance to fully recover. I mean, just to put this as a quick example, you probably wouldn't go and do, if you're on the bodybuilding side, you probably won't be doing leg day every single day. You're going to want to give yourself some time in between workouts to make sure that you're fully recovered. And to be honest, what this really comes down to is just having smart programming, and ensuring that your training program is set up in a way that even if you have a high training load, you're giving your body the time to recover and adapt in between workouts. So I want to sort of round this off and give you a few things to think about and take away from this video. So if you are in the case where you're just a beginner, it is true that you can probably get away with, just the training side of the equation, and you will see improved fitness and performance. Uh, the key issue here is that this is going to plateau pretty quickly, um, and I think a lot of people, they, after those beginner gains and when they start to hit that plateau, whether they're on the hybrid side or the lifting side or endurance side of things, um, they just kind of accept that. And the reality is you don't need to be staying at that plateau. So by, improving the resource and recovery components of this hybrid fitness equation, you can absolutely still see incredible gains, in all aspects of your fitness beyond just that beginner stage of your training. And really, the further you get into fitness and the more you check off those big, major, obvious boxes of, getting the training dialed in, that sort of thing, um, the more you need to start looking at smaller details. And with each of these buckets, whether it be the training, the recovery, or the resources, you can keep getting further and further into the details and finding more and more things to optimize. A lot of what we covered today was more so high level stuff, but there's plenty of room to get into the details and always, be striving to find ways to get better and keep pushing your fitness to the next level. So if you are looking for a smart training program that will help you, with a system where you actually have time to recover properly in between workouts, I would strongly recommend checking out my app, Hybrid Strength Fitness. It'll build a program for you to get you ready for your next Hyrox race and ensure that you're able to both recover and build fitness in order to bring yourself to the next level.